In the meantime, we have Tim Ryan joining us, of course. You remember him, the 2020 presidential candidate, former Ohio Congressman. Congressman, it's great to see you. Before I get into you, sir, you're probably aware of these 9 Democrats, either on the record or 4 privately, considering that the president of the United States, not make a run for it again. Now, I raised this over the weekend, sir, with a Colorado Democrat who is campaigning for an open seat there. And he had an interesting take on all of this, the message it sends from the White House right now. I want you to respond to this.
I think it's really, really important for the sake of the country, for the president to withdraw from the race with due respect and try to figure out how we get new generational leadership in both parties. And that's what I'm hearing, again, from Southern Colorado and Western Colorado. And it's really, really frustrating to continue to hear what I'm hearing from the men and the women. I've driven 57,000 miles around for the past couple of years, and what I'm hearing out of D.C. that seems to be pretty darn insular.
You know, there are many in your party, sir, thinking that they've been hiding a lot of this, that they are well aware, including those at the White House who were quite aware of the president's cognitive issues, that they came glaringly to light for virtually all Americans, anyone watching that debate in the world. Do you think there's any culpability on their part that they are propping him up?
I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to play one literally on television, but I can just say that there's a lot of frustration that over the past many, many months, there's been a lot of hiding. That's what I'm hearing, again, from the people on the ground I'm talking to.
Congressman Ryan, thank you for your patience tonight. I just want to put in perspective, because there are others who feel the same way, but they're not coming out and saying it. And I think that is part of the sense you get from the White House. They think they can survive all of this. Do you think they can?
I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I just saw the top line on the Parkinson's doctor over at the White House 8 times in 8 months. I mean, part of the problem, I think, Neil, is that the interview would, obviously we saw what we saw during the debate. And then the Stephanopoulos interview, are you more frail than you were 4 years ago? And he says, no. Like, we're all more frail than we were 4 years ago. I mean, I turned 50, and it's not a big deal, but you're in a much different, your body feels differently than it did at 45. And so he's starting to build that narrative that they're not being completely transparent about it. And he was asked that on Morning Joe this morning, and he dodged the question. And I thought Mika asked him pretty straightforwardly, have you had anybody checking on this stuff? And it was dodged, and now you get this report coming out. I just think what we saw on Thursday during the debate with our own eyes told us something. You don't have to be a neurologist. You don't have to be a doctor. You just have to be someone who, like me and like you and others, had parents or grandparents that, time wins. Time wins. And so it becomes difficult to beat this stuff back because we saw it with our own eyes.
Now, you're 50 years old. I have ties older than you, Congressman, so I know what you're saying.
I could tell some shows I've seen them.
Let me ask you, though, just about what signal this is sending, because you were part of the debate and remembered what he was like as a candidate just 4 years ago. And I've talked to some of the others, a couple of them privately, who say, no, he's not that same guy, that whatever is going on here is picking up speed. Do you agree with that?
It seems that way. Again, I'm not to steal the line, but I'm not a doctor either, but it seems that way. And I have experience in my own life with, my mom and my grandparents and people who have, aren't no longer with us. Like those years before that happens, you see a dramatic decline. And if you don't see someone every day, it looks even more stark. And we haven't seen the president around much in the last year or two, at least, those other than news junkies. And then all of a sudden he reemerges and you're like, I don't think that was the guy that I remember. And, we hear a lot about being loyal to the president, being loyal to the party. One of the big things about loyalty, Neil, is honesty. In any relationship you have, if you want to be loyal, what undergirds that loyalty is honesty and having the difficult conversations and not pretending. And I think there's a lot of Democrats that may not be on social media, but they're out in the world, and they feel like they've been betrayed to some extent as these stories start trickling out. Where was somebody a few years ago, a few months ago, and everyone was kind of pushed out of a Democratic primary. There weren't any debates. If there were debates in the Democratic primary, even if it was RFK or Marianne Williamson or Dean Phillips or whomever, we would have gotten a sense maybe of where the president's health was, and we didn't.
But early
so,
on, there were
is
some debates. You're quite right. Maybe some people said they're not enough. But Senator John Fetterman had heard some of the criticism you had when he was appearing on Fox earlier today, and he didn't take it very lightly. I want you to respond to what the senator said.
Let me say that I'm not sure who really gives a what Tim Ryan thinks about the situation. I know it says former, so he's not really a part of it in that conversation right now. And also from this situation, let's just focus on where we're at. It's going to be a close race here.
I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that. What did you think?
Well, look, I spent my entire adult life in the Democratic Party trying to push us to make sure that we, get our values out, our policies out. And I'm a citizen of the United States. I have every right to say whatever I want. And if I have a little bit of a bigger microphone than most citizens, you can bet I'm going to use it. And if it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, that's not my problem. Look, I like John Fetterman. He ran a good race. I ran a good race. He came out on top. I didn't. But I still got a voice. And what we need in this democracy are citizens that aren't afraid to speak up if they may make somebody uncomfortable. And chances are, if you're making people really uncomfortable, then you may be speaking to some truth that's out there. And I'm just not going to bury my head in the sand and pretend I didn't see what I saw on Thursday night. And I just think we've got to take another direction here so that we can win this race. And you can call me all the names you want, and you can try to poke fun at me all you want. I don't get rattled. I just try to speak the truth, and the truth is a very powerful thing, and that's why a lot of Democrats are very, very concerned, and they need a voice and somebody to speak up. And really to tell someone to not speak up, to shut up, because they may say something you disagree with, like take a cognitive test. Like, do town halls. Go do a Fox town hall like I did when I ran for the United States Senate. Get in a hostile environment and make your points, make your case, and prove to people. You can't read off a teleprompter. You can't read, cards from a telephone interview that you're doing and expect everyone to just kind of get in line. And then this last story that's come out about the doctor going and then not answering that question. So what do you want us to do? Like, we're seeing this with our own eyes and you're getting mad at us, and that's ridiculous. And so anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
All right. Well, there's outrage over what you said about my ties. That's starting a whole new wave of criticism, Congressman. But thank you very much. Very good seeing you again. Congressman Tim Ryan, on all of that. The fallout from all of this.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.